Hey, how's it going, everybody? YouTube, what's up? Also, chat is here, but you can't see them. Typical, stereotypical stuff. Recently in a video, we talked about Team Liquid and their chance to play in Regional 3. Shoutouts to the Super Bowl, allowing them to be, eligible because of the main event is post-8. In that video, if you guys didn't see it, make sure you guys go back and check it out. But we talked about the community guidelines and some of the updates that come with it. One of the big ones being the transition from community guideline tournaments allowing people that are 13 to play going to 15. A person that I thought that had a pretty interesting take on it was actually Fruity. And fun fact, Fruity was in chat and talking about that said thing. He was like, yo, this is pretty interesting. And I'm like, hey, Fruity, do you want to hop on Discord and actually talk about this? Provide your insight as we go through the article and do like a little guest spot on a video. And he's like, sure. So Fruity's on the call. Let's talk to him. All right, everybody. We've got Fruity on the call. He's just said hello. I don't know if you heard that or not. It depends on what Mr. Editor decided to do. Shout out to Wojtek. But I've got the community guideline page up, and I'm gonna just kind of go through it. But overall, the big reason I asked you to cop on the call is because I saw your quote tweet about it. You feel that it's a step forward, but also 2 steps backwards. Limiting the age to all community tournaments to 15 is such a blow. It was great towards those tournaments and players that they were able to compete outside the RLCS system to gain experience and showcase their talent, which I think is also a very interesting conversation in general, because right now people are trying to build and develop RLCS-esque tournaments. Primarily, obviously, the amateur scene has been a lot of conversation. I think a step even further below that has to do with the bubble as well as, up-and-comers. Other than show matches, what is there?
Yeah, I mean, especially the French scene in Europe as well with Rocket Baguette. They have so many tournaments running and so many young players coming through and all the nice cactus as well. Back in the days, we had ESL competing as well. So it's there's always been grassroots tournaments where young people who couldn't compete in RLCS had a future in actually competing before they made it. And I think it's a great way also seeing the talent in NA with First Killer, Daniel. Those things are now not possible with these rules. It just seems like we're going backwards, and I think it's a shame for the whole scene, because we know that the talent is there for people who are below 15. So limiting that factor is a bit of a shame, I think.
Yeah, for the people that aren't aware or who haven't been able to go through the guidelines, there's a couple of big things that they're updating. Let me put an image of Fruity on the bottom right. There he is. Look at him. There's a lot of images on here that are not as
old.
Some of these other ones that are on Google are not ideal. So we're gonna just, or should I just do this? So the big things that I really enjoy, obviously, increasing the prize pool. In the past, if you wanted to run a community ran tournament, so when I did the brawl and stuff, which more details on that soon, YouTube people, I had to make sure the prize pool was under 5,000. If it wasn't, I had to reach out to Psyonix, get approval and all that kind of stuff. Community guidelines exist as a guideline. If you are going to make your own tournament, if you're going to be a tournament organizer, if you're going to be one of those things, you need to adhere to these guidelines. And if you would like to do more than that, then you can reach out to Psyonix and they can say yes, no, hey, scheduling conflicts, blah, blah, blah. It's to make sure that if there's an RLCS event going on, your prize pool isn't outweighing it and people are going to watch your tournament instead of theirs. It's basically the way it's going to go. They've increased that to 15,000, 300% increase. They also removed, if I ran a bunch of tournaments throughout the entire year, my total prizing that I put into the scene couldn't be more than 50K. There was an EU tournament, Fruity, I forget who it was, but they wanted to put in some pretty big prizes.
In Civic with the European Invitational, I think?
No, there was I forget who it was. Jay, what's his handle? He's a caster. Yeah, Eternal J. So Eternal J and them had a podcast where they talked about it, and there is the concern of there was this big organizer, and there's been a lot in Europe where they've wanted to raise pretty heavy funds.
Yeah, I think it was Swiss tournament.
Yeah, but they haven't been able to. They're just oh yeah, we can't exceed, and Sonics doesn't want us, and they have those restrictions. And now it's I can run tournaments every weekend, every whatever I want. And I don't have to worry about hitting that $50,000 amount. If I run 400 tournaments over the year, right? 2 a week or something like that, or whatever I'm doing, those funds, it's 50K sounds like a lot, but when you're doing, $1,000 here or there, it adds up quick. It really does.
Yeah.
So removing that cap in general is awesome. Also, crowdfunding is no longer restricted to only funding the prize pool, which is awesome. As someone who has done crowdfunding based things, anytime we raised money, it had to go to the players. But now I can use it to pay other casters. I can use it to hire production. I can use it to do all these other things, graphic assets, whatever I want. But before, if I raised money from the community, had to go right back into the community. Had to, which I understood their reasoning, but the fact that they've removed that, I think is awesome. They just have to make sure that compensation and stuff has to remain within its cap. There is a disclaimer to that. The big one that you're talking about, though, is the 15 players. If you're 15 years old, you have to be. Labor laws, etc.
Big one.
Yeah.
It's definitely the big one.
It's interesting because I do agree that in a lot of the tournaments, the one that comes to mind for me, obviously being North America, is Astro. The Astros Star Circuit Beyond Entertainment ones. A lot of young players, 13 and otherwise. Like you saw First Killer originally, Daniel in there. I don't know why the name, Stealth. And like some of these young kids that would come in and just absolutely dominate against, your 12 to 20 ranked teams. And those are good ways to not only earn some money when you're a young kid, but also, like you said, obtain some sort of notoriety that says, hey, pick me up when I'm eligible. When I'm of age, I'm a one you want to go for. And now, like, what are they playing? You hope Johnny Boy runs a show match and you crush in the 1v1 scene? Like, what other avenues are there?
But hear me out. Is it even possible for Johnny to do that now with these rules?
Yeah, why not?
But technically, isn't it a crowd-funded tournament when he runs a show match? Therefore, they must be over 15.
All players must be 15 years old or such
right?
other age, if greater, as may be required by player's country of residence.
Because a show match is a crowd-funded match, usually what Johnny does.
Right.
So, like, I don't know, he used to do that, right?
I wonder what the clarification is between show match and, like, tournament.
Yeah. But, of course, you can still run the tournament where there's no prize money and he just shows, like, a show match with no... Like, the only thing is the prestige and showing off, like, your capabilities, which is in itself is probably worth more than the prize money you would ever get, because the exposure that you get from Johnny is really, it's gold. It's worth so much more than just the prize money you get, because down the road, those performances will secure contracts, prize money, opportunities. So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people obviously focus on the short term of like, hey, I play in this match, I want money now. But
yeah,
it's more so about like utilizing and I hate the word exposure, like the amount of like, oh, hey, work with me and I'll pay you an exposure. I'll tweet out that this, like, it only goes so far, right? And there's definitely that negative connotation to it. But truly, when you look at even Fear, Fear's running the 1v1 stuff now a lot too, because Johnny's obviously busy with casting and whatnot. But those tournaments become associated with like, yo, you're an up and coming player. Like, this is a way for you to showcase without the excuse of teammates, like your individual skill. Come put it on showcase. And maybe that mentality is starting to shift from you have to do it for money and you have to do it now for the ability to put yourself in a position to be successful. Because I know obviously you come off of the kind of the older mentality of like, yo, work hard, put your head down, and make ends meet.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know if that's maybe the difference, or maybe Psyonix is like, this is step one to like starting to build out academy systems or something. I don't know.
I was gonna mention that because I also tweeted about academy, because surely this is gonna open the conversation for academy teams.
It makes them more prevalent now than ever.
Yeah, for sure. And I think academy teams is something that should have been introduced a long time ago. I would love to see an RLCS Academy League where you have those players and bring them into the system, and then you have that opportunity to really develop the talent from like a grassroots perspective. And that's really going to elevate the scene, like, if we want to talk about being a tier 1 esports, because that's what it takes. Like, all the tier 1 esports have that grassroots system. They have the academy teams. They have all of those like systems in place where they introduce the players at young ages, where you just breed esports, right? Like, you treat it as such a professional manner that when it comes from outside investors, they can see that, okay, this is serious. What this does, in my opinion, is like it just limits ourselves for the future of Rocket League, for sure.
The curiosity that I get with academy teams, though, my first exposure to it was League of Legends, because I know you used to play pretty heavily. I used to be like a pretty high diamond player as well. And League of Legends, I know, is 17. Because I remember Shifter was a god tier mid laner at like 15, and he had to sit on their B team for like 2 years before he got to start. At what point is it too young? Because esports has this really unique situation where and I talked about this earlier on my stream, we don't have to wait for post university, college, whatever, right? Like normally you see this natural transition between middle school, high school, college, and then pro. And by then they're young adults. They're 22, 23, which is when most of our pros are done. Like, unless you're one of the unique circumstances, like you're done at that age. Your esports career is over. And that's when they're just starting. So how are we supposed to implement an academy system when already a lot of people think 15, 16 is young, but our players can be pros at that point? League of Legends starts 2 years prior. So how young do we keep going until we are, like football over in Europe where they have actual clubs that it's like, you came out of the womb, you're 5, 6, time to practice every day, and we're going to literally make you a football legend. Like, that is your purpose in life. Because at that point, I don't think kids even understand what they're getting involved in. I mean, I expect the turnover rate to be insane because of, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a football player, a firefighter, an astronaut, whatever. And then none of that stuff came true because reality hit. So, like, at what point do you say, hey, we want to make this academy system, and the people that are going to be in it are just way too young? I'm sure you'll find some that stick, like Drawley or something like that. And you saw KCP try that out, but they don't know where he's going to be living even. So they're like, yeah, we'll figure out how it goes.
Yeah.
So, like, when is too young? And the reason why I feel comfortable asking you stuff like that is because you were a pro. You know exactly what goes into that process. Do you think that at a younger age, if you would have had a system, like, would you have stuck with it? Would it have deterred you? Like,
now I also come from Denmark, so my perspective on this is completely different to a lot of, I think, other countries. Because
Counter-Strike,
Denmark has evolved into like an almost esports nation where we start esports like when you're 13, 14. It's an actual matter of in the school where you can take a line where it's like, okay, this is accepted.
That's actually cool.
Where you can both do the esports, but you also get the school at the same time.
Can you go into like more detail on that? I'm actually curious. Like, is there like certain courses, or like how does that apply? How does that apply? Or
yeah, it's a course. So like, let's say like a rough example would be like, okay, every week you have 3 hours of like esports classes. So like you have an hour and a half on a Tuesday at like 3 p.m. You have a teacher. You go to a room where you have PC setups, and you basically get taught like that's how do we be teammates for each other, and you can do that twice a week. It's something like that. I know I'm simplifying it a lot, but as the premises of it, like that's basically what you can do. It's not like esports is gonna take over the entire school system. Like you're only doing esports. It's merely just a small like speciality that you have, because schools you practice like economics, if you're an artist, like all those things. But there's also the possibility to do esports. So it's like, it's just more like trying to make it normal, not trying to make it like, oh, esports is all about,
it's not violence and taboo.
Yeah, violence, staying home, like
addictive as heroin,
coke
as
and
they
chips
say,
and all that stuff,
It's definitely, because obviously I come from a North American background. We're very behind on a lot of things, especially when it comes to the acceptance of that being like an actual career path, because we do have a lot of old, as one of my mods call them, coffin dodgers, which I think is the funniest phrase ever. But there's a lot of people of power that are like, nope, resistant to change. It's going to be the way that it is at all times. It's never going to, until those people legitimately pass and a new generation comes into places of power, that forward thinking is not going to be. I mean, best example I can give is when COVID hit, we saw all of these traditional sports struggle, and ESPN, for the first time, their parent company, Disney, lose money for like the first time in like 50 some years. And rather than going with esports, which transitions online easily, it's still doing well, it's successful, they cut that entire department. They got rid of ESPN esports. No longer exists. All their writers are gone. Every project they're working, it's done. To stop like the hemorrhaging, they're just like, yep, we'll just wait it out and try to minimize loss rather than focusing on the thing that's
years.
And we'll try it again later, even though it may be too late. We're getting ready on the ground floor. We've got good connections. We're now going to start and hit the reset button rather than pushing forward. But then you see other countries, whether it be Canada or otherwise, have like the fact that your guys' schooling has that in place.
I mean, in America, you guys are building it as well. With Psyonix is especially putting a lot of effort into the collegiate scene.
Yeah, but that's kids that are 19 plus.
Yeah, but surely it can be, put down to like the 13, 14, 15-year-olds, like if you have the right structure, surely you can transform it into a system that also works for younger kids, because at the end of the day, you're still like mentally a kid for a lot of people, who are 18, 19, you're not fully developed. So it's more about the public's view, I think, which in America, I think is a lot more difficult to get than it is in, for example, Denmark. And like you said, it can take generations for this to happen.
Yeah, I think that's like it's going to take someone to take that risk to be like, yep, we have a dedicated academy system. We don't care if it's losing a ton of money, but it's in place because we know long term it's the right thing to do. Yeah. I'm actually going to a business summit for my area because the issue is like obviously the United States is pretty big and there's a lot of different subcultures from country to country and everything. In the Midwest where I'm at, there's pretty much you drink alcohol and watch sports. That's about it. That's a huge generalization, but that's pretty much your pastimes. Like that's all you do. Like we have more bars per square mile than any other state in the country. There's not a whole lot going on. But with that said, I'm going to a business summit where I'm a panelist, where there is a group of people from Minnesota, Illinois, and Wisconsin all coming together to talk and discuss the future of esports in our area. And those types of things are conversations that we will have, right? Those are types of things where we'll discuss and I'll talk about what is the future of esports. And one of the things I'm going to be bringing up is we need a better foundation. We need to find ways, like there's a reason why the NFL and everything else are so successful, because you have a structure that is implemented from step A to Z to go from I'm interested to I'm a professional. You know exactly your line. And Psyonix has been trying to create that since I started with following Rocket League back in 2015. I remember initial conversations with Twitch and with Psyonix being like, we want people to know exactly what they need to do to go from I'm interested to I'm a pro. And I think this is one of those steps, because there's 15, we have to find some sort of foundation to figure out like, how are we going to get this new generation of free-to-play young kids coming over from Fortnite? And how do we get them to pursue step by step what it is? Because I think that's what the biggest focus is getting new free-to-play players involved. I think anybody who was pre-free-to-play, for the most part, is like, I'm either already a pro or I like know where my focus is at.
Yeah. For me, it's especially the free-to-play aspect is a bit interesting, because we're not going to see that until like at least another maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years, because I think it takes a bit more time to develop the talents, and especially with this now with 15, right? So like all those young kids, they're going to have to like wait, like if they're like 11, 12, 13, then they're going to have to wait a long time, and we won't see anything of that because of these rules that have just been made. The way you can only see them now is through, like, for example, show matches like they do with no prize money, ranked leaderboards, YouTube potentially, so those are the only ways you can actually see them now and see what actually has been done with the long-term commitment.
So I guess biggest kind of recap on all this, obviously I like the increase in the money. I like the removal of the cap.
Oh, that's all great.
Yeah, all this stuff is awesome.
Yep.
Come back for
I don't think anyone can say this is bad.
Yeah. The only
it's impossible for anything to like those grassroots, like I think that's perfect.
Yeah. The only concern is the age restriction, which again is always a thing, and it also coincides with the Team Liquid thing we just talked about. It's interesting that they are increasing that, especially for community tournaments. I don't know if it's a legal thing that they've been meaning to do for a while, and then they're going to create something. Usually Psyonix, when they make changes like this, there is clear reasoning as to why. And it's the same thing of like when everybody was like, hey, why isn't there automatic teams given spots in the RLCS? I'm like, well, because there's no infrastructure below it. You have to have something below for them to feed into that new system. Rival Series gets announced. everything's fine. So I think this is, again, with this open circuit, how can you create something below that? Right now, obviously, you're seeing flashes of brilliance and other teams trying to create, stuff for the teams that are ranked anywhere from 17 to 24. But you still need something even further below that, whether it be up and coming talent. Like there's got to be something for these younger players other than in-game tournaments. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe they're just trying to really build up their in-game tournament system. I don't know. I think the easiest way to do that is club queue. I've been asking for club queue since clubs came out. I don't know why there isn't a dedicated 3-person queue. I have no idea why.
I think there's just, in general, we need to look at also the ranked leaderboard system and how it works, especially with clubs. I think that would be a great addition. Add some actual feel of accomplishment if you win something, because winning a tournament, you get a title now, and you feel like nobody really wears the title. It doesn't feel prestigious. Maybe have a tournament that runs once every week, and it's like a thing, because the infrastructure is there now with Psyonix. They've added it, and I think a lot of the time Psyonix does good things with adding the infrastructure, but the problem I see is a lot of the times is just they don't use the potential they have given themselves, which is such a shame because everyone wants to see this game do well. And the potential is there and everyone knows it. But sometimes it just falls short, even though we feel like it would be such an easy thing to just do that last push and then it would be great.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people in my chat talking about two things. Number one, Fortnite World Cup obviously was 13-year-olds. With Booga
really?
and all of them, right? I don't know if it's just because of the classification of what the World Cup was. I don't know if they had certain differences with that because they were definitely younger. I don't know if it was because it was not even a show match, but a showcase of stuff.
It seemed like a game show almost.
Yeah,
kind of like that vibe.
The unique thing is Fortnite is kind of the laughingstock of the esports world and has been for a long time. You don't implement an update a couple days before your biggest tournament ever. You just don't do that. Competitive integrity, all that kind of stuff. They even referred to their own pros as influencers. They didn't refer to them as pros. They had specific namesake for this is not a professional. This is a person who plays their game and they influence it. It was really weird. It was really weird. So I don't know if there's again, I don't know the child labor laws. I don't know the legality behind it. I know everybody misspells my name and autocorrects to Lawyer, not Lawler, but I don't know. I wish I did. Not educated on that topic. The second thing of it that a lot of people are talking about also is I can't remember the other one. Clearly it's not that important. But there was two things that they were talking about that I was oh yeah, those things. But now I can't think of it. This is why I hate that Streamlabs is broken right now and I can't display any of the stuff I have. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see what it is going to lead to, how things are going to flesh out and become kind of that system and that structure. I know someone does talk about the IRL sports and the NCAA is not ideal. Oh, it talks about my thought process is the new generation. We have the ability to learn from other things. Esports for a long time has tried to do its best to make sure that when we do hit mainstream, there's no reason for them to deny us. Our mic cables are always in the right place, or we make sure all these things are strict and proper, and we use the right equipment and all that kind of stuff, which has made esports really polished at the high level. But we've gotten to the point with esports where we've transcended traditional sports. We no longer have to adhere to their guidelines. So while we can use the things that they've done, we can do them better. The NCAA has definitely taken advantage of their college players for a long time, and they promise them well, you're getting a degree for blah blah blah, and that's your reward, even though we're exploiting you for billions of dollars. That stuff is finally starting to topple down. Why can't a kid out of college get a brand deal that's going to support him so he's not eating ramen? There's certain things that they're finally starting to fix with that, but at the end of the day, when these things come into place, they are going to be a business. People are going to try to make money off of them, so that protection is always of a concern. But I do hope that when they do implement these things, I mean, we're talking about young kids, really, really young kids. And it's not always that parents or otherwise are going to take that investment in their kids' hobbies. There is definitely concern. So you got to think about worst case scenario. How do we make sure that if we do implement these structures and academy leagues and this and that organizations, et cetera, aren't abusing the situation that they have because the kids are just uneducated on the process. So when it's new, like people are going to be going in blind. You talk about how, hey, just because we have, esports and CRL and stuff coming into play, when you start putting these into high schools and stuff, those concerns are still definitely there.
Yeah. I mean, I think esports is gonna have this like issue for a long time. Not just it's gonna take like a generation. I think like it's not something that's gonna get fixed short term. I think it's gonna just it's not like you said, like spoke about earlier, is that it's gonna take a new generation at the top level before we actually see any change. Because I think the mentality of people growing up with esports is gonna be so differently when they get to be parents. That they're gonna have those like experience themselves, and the esport is gonna look completely different then. Like, but the seed has been planted, and that's the most important thing. I think is that hopefully by the time comes, we're gonna be more open to changes and things that we don't understand that this generation doesn't understand yet. So hopefully, it's just gonna take time, I think.
This conversation has happened, I think it happens like every like 5 years about there's going to be a time when generations are talking to their kids not about like who their favorite sports team. Like I grew up loving the Green Bay Packers. There's a chance that in future generations, the kids growing up are going to be fans of Cloud9, TSM. Like they're going to be a TSM household or a Cloud9 household or an esports organization household where like in this house you root for G2, kind of stuff. Yeah. Like that is going to, I think, be a thing in a transition. I think those are the generations that are going to be the ones that are used to that structure. It seems like obviously if you guys are already having that like courses in your high school and everything that already exist.
Oh yeah, that happens already here.
That's insane. Like, that's so crazy compared to me on the other side of the world where it's yeah, right. Like my mom works for a cellular provider and still doesn't know how to use her cell phone. Like it's different, man. It's different. It's cool. It's very interesting. And not to put my mom on blast like that. I love you to death, Mom. But it's such a different culture change that I hope does transition faster and faster. And the ones that I think, take too long for it are going to get left behind.
True.
I don't know, man. New guidelines, man. Pretty crazy stuff. I like most of the changes, but one is of bigger concern for sure.
True.
Any final thoughts? Any last things that you have on it? Any things that we didn't approach?
I think the guidelines are good for now. I think it's something that Psyonix should have a roadmap of. I think they should look at it by let's say every quarter. I think they should probably have a discussion with a lot of people in the community that are actually running these tournaments and ask them, how can we, is there something we can tweak for you guys to make it easier? Is there something we should add, something we should do? Because I think that is literally the key to how we are going to continue to grow as an esports, is that having that communication with the grassroots consistently, and hopefully Psyonix expands on that with like more people, more hires, and I think just the structure in general. Like if we get that structure and foundation now, that's going to help for the long term, which is what we all want.
I do agree with that wholeheartedly. I hope the like self-awareness of Psyonix, which they've usually like, they stay pretty secretive. They're quiet until it's like secretive. When we make the announcement, we want to make sure it's end all to be all. But I think this is one especially that I would like for them to be self-aware and get out ahead of and be like, hey, we understand that this impacts a lot of people that are 13 or otherwise that used to play in these tournaments and now can't. We are having plans of finding ways to do a league or something that is just for younger ages. You have to be younger than 15 in order to play in it, stuff like that. Like I hope they have like a part 2 that comes out that's like, by the way, we do know this is a thing. We're trying to figure stuff out. If they just keep letting it snowball, it could be ugly.
And I do hope that they listen to the community, feedback. And I think a lot of the time, I know that Psyonix listens and they read all the comments and all that stuff sometimes. It's just a shame that we don't see any like feedback back between, like, because we go in the unknown and the secretive, like they know we're talking about this, but they're not saying like, oh, we've seen this happen, we know this is an issue, but then it just gets unnoticed, and then we get in that situation where it's like, are we in this alone, or is there a publisher behind us?
I think they're doing a lot of good things. A lot of good things, but obviously communication and everything could always be better. It's gonna be an interesting one, man. I like with the direction they're headed. There's a lot of really cool stuff they haven't even begun to talk about that I'm not supposed to know about. That's coming soon. So a lot of really cool things in the future. But again, as always, Fruity, I appreciate your insight. Appreciate your willingness to come and chat with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, glad to see you doing cool things with SK Gaming. Hope to see you guys continue to improve. But seriously, if you guys don't know already, Fruity LOL, I think it's with a 0.
True, that is correct.
On all socials, go hit the boy up. Just Fruity on Twitch. You still streaming quite a bit, or you focus on other things?
Every day, as always. The grind never stops.
What's your typical stream schedule?
I start 2 p.m. European time, so that's really early NA. So like if you're having coffee in America, you'll probably watch me.
Yeah, you think us Americans get up there? You crazy, man. It's usually when I'm going to bed. I every once in a while will like tune into your stream when I'm like in that state of like I can't fall asleep, and I'll just be like, I'm gonna fall asleep to this. Easy.
Yeah. That's either how it goes. Either people are falling asleep to me or waking up to me.
Hey, man, it's a good niche to cover, man. Someone's got to be at that time frame. Either way, man. Appreciate you taking the time as always. Seriously, man, miss you. Hopefully we see you again soon at one of these events now that live events are coming back. But
True.
Pretty crazy stuff going on in the scene here soon. Yep. So look forward to your quote tweet and your opinions on that the next time, and then maybe we'll pop in another call.
Hopefully.
Alrighty, buddy, catch you later.
See ya.
Again, everybody, make sure if you guys don't already, go show Fruity some love. Fruity LOL, the O is a 0. Fruity L0L on all socials. Just Fruity on Twitch, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you guys go check them out. But trying to do more videos like this where it's topical, and if the people end up being willing, bring them into the call and have a long form kind of conversation, because as much as I can give you a concise opinion about it, I do think the conversations and providing insight from a different side of the world where they actually have classes and stuff, like we are starting to see, like in United States, like esports clubs, but they definitely don't have the infrastructure that teach the important things. Like they happen organically where it's like, oh, if I play in this club enough, then we'll start to learn like team building stuff. But when the actual focus is there, and it's like this is a course with someone who's educated on the process about the importance of it, it's just built out more. It's more impactful than some of the stuff we're doing here. So it is interesting to see that kind of stuff. So hopefully you guys are enjoying that stuff. If you guys do, as always, or if you like these types of topics, your own thoughts and opinions about the new guidelines, let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, if you enjoy the content, thumbs up, subscribe, notifications. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.